2 years ago, a client refused to pay me for a packaging design, calling it unprofessional and amateur. This destroyed my confidence. Was I actually a bad designer, and had I just killed my business? Thankfully, I recovered, and years later, after working on an array of packaging projects, I realized that younger, inexperienced me made 3 big mistakes that led to that embarrassing situation. But what are those mistakes, and what can you do to avoid them? To find out, let's go through my process when creating packaging so you can see exactly how it's done right while helping you avoid those mistakes. So I'm about to jump on a call with a client as they signed the branding off last week, meaning it's time to create the packaging. I do these calls just to ensure that the client and I are both aligned with the vision and goals for this product. I feel like I'm high. After that call, I had lunch and now I'm back in the office ready to source a die line. This is where younger me made the first of 3 big mistakes. But here's how I'm gonna avoid that mistake and do it correctly. Firstly, identify whether it's my responsibility to find a manufacturer and source the die line. Now, I know from the call that it is because the client doesn't have one. Next, agree with the client on the best dimensions for the product. For this packaging, we agreed on a box with these dimensions which would work best for the product. Lastly, confirm with the client that the manufacturer you have sourced is okay with them. I got the answers to these questions during our call, so I'm now ready to source the packaging. And for this, I'm using the sponsor of today's video, PackHelp, who provides sustainable packaging for businesses. They also have an online editor, a little bit like Canva, for those not as design savvy. But I'll be downloading the die line template so I can use it within Adobe Illustrator and make this packaging extra customizable. I mentioned this is where I previously made my first big mistake, and it came from poor client communication. For that past project, it was agreed that I would source the die line, but they already had a manufacturer, so actually it was their job to provide me with the template. I ended up sourcing one with the wrong dimensions, so when it went to printing the packaging, the alignment and placement was all wrong. See, this was a quick fix. I just needed to ensure I improved my communication skills. But that alone wouldn't have been good enough because the next mistake I made was a major one that I still see a lot of designers get wrong. So it is now Monday and I told the client that I would have this done by Friday, so I need to get a little bit of a move on. I'm gonna jump into Adobe Illustrator and pay careful attention to what I do, as there's one key thing that inexperienced me failed to consider, which led to mistake number 2. Okay, first I'm gonna quickly check the color profile. Now when creating packaging, I always start with the background color. Now for this, I think I'm gonna go with the lightest color, which would be cream. This should then allow all of the bold colors to really stand out and pop against that lighter cream color. Now I'm gonna add the main logo. So this section of the die line here is the top of the box, and this will be seen most by the customers. So with that in mind, I'm gonna grab the main logo and I'm gonna place this dead in the center. FYI, I like to design fast and not delay over decisions. I would rather make multiple versions instead of constantly tinkering with one. That way you get to see side-by-side comparisons, which are best for seeing what needs to be tweaked. Now, did you see the important step I took that prevented a mistake? Before I started designing, I made sure my color profile was set to CMYK. This is the industry standard for printing. This is something I failed to do 2 years ago on that project, and it resulted in the colors being really dull when printed. But in all honesty, even if I did have the right color profile, it wouldn't have made my work any better, because the last big mistake I made is what you call an absolute howler. It was made after the design was complete, so let's finish off this packaging so I can show you how you can prevent this from happening. I'm gonna go ahead and play around with adding other brand assets like illustrations and the brand pattern, and I will check back in with you guys later. So a few hours later, and I've created 3 versions. So I knew I wanted to include the brand pattern and illustrations of the mascots around the logo. I think with versions number 1 and 2, the logo is getting a little lost with the illustrations, but version 3 looks playful and fun. I like the border around the logo as it separates the illustrations. Okay, now I'm just gonna add some finishing touches to the top of this box, and I'm just using the pencil tool to create some really messy squares that are gonna resemble brownie pieces coming from this huge mouth, which will add to the playful side of this brand. I think that works quite well. Okay, so it's currently late afternoon and I am just finishing up for the day. Yesterday I wasn't able to work on the packaging because I was recording a YouTube video. So today I thought I would put my head down and focus on designing the front, back and sides of the box. So on the front of the box, I decided to put a question because this is the last section of the packaging that the customer will see before opening up the box, which helps build that little bit of excitement. Plus it incorporates their tagline really nicely. I then continued the illustration from the top onto the front. Then I moved onto the back. Now this is where me of 2 years ago made the third big mistake. See, inexperienced younger me would have carried on the pattern. Now although this is wrong, this isn't actually the mistake. This mistake came after this. But first, let me explain why this is wrong. This section of the box folds down, so if I were to carry on the pattern, it would be upside down when the box is put together. So to avoid this, I rotated the illustrations 90 degrees. Now when the box is folded, they face the correct way. Next were the size of the boxes. So on these sections, I debated having larger text to draw your eyes, but it didn't quite work that well. So instead, I decided to use the sticker asset. So I placed these in a really messy way to mimic real stickers and to match the brand pattern. I then grabbed the brown crumbs previously used on the top of the box and put them in the white space around the stickers to keep it really nice and consistent. I am pretty happy with the day's work. I feel good and on track to complete this project in time. Tomorrow's goal will be to finish designing the packaging and do some quality control checks. This is where I made my final mistake. I failed to do one crucial thing that every designer must do when finishing their design. But we will talk more about that tomorrow. I'm off to watch Shrek.
You cut me deep, Shrek. You cut me real deep just now.
Good morning. We are on to the last section, which is the bottom of the box. Now, before I came into the office this morning, I was brainstorming a few ideas of what I could do with the design of the bottom, and I think I've come up with a solid idea. So first, I'm going to turn these stickers around the other way just so they are the right way on this section, and then I'm just going to randomly place them so that they're not neat and tidy and it gives that messy and organic look. Not a lot of people will probably look at the bottom of this box, but if they do, leaving something memorable or funny here would be a really nice touch. So first I'm going to add the boring stuff like their website, so scoff.co.uk, and we're going to place that on the back near the bottom of the box. And then next I'm going to add a little quote that I came up with this morning. Well, I can't take all of the credit because my partner actually helped, and that is, we can't take responsibility if you scoff your face a little too much. This again just fits in with the playful tone of the brand so well. Remember, a brand isn't just a logo, it is the emotion behind what someone feels and sees when they interact with your business. Now it's time for quality control checks. My go-to is simple yet effective, and that is printing it out and putting it together. Now give me a sec and I'll quickly do it so we can see how it looks. Okay, so I know this is very DIY and it's not perfect, but it gives me a great visual representation of how the box is gonna look and make sure that everything is placed exactly where it needs to be. There is nothing upside down or in the wrong place, and I'm happy with the alignment and how it is put together. This was actually the biggest and final mistake I made. If I ran quality control checks, I would have prevented my 2 previous mistakes. Having a stage dedicated to monitoring the quality of your work and checking for any errors is so important. Okay, so the client has just got back to me and they are over the moon with the packaging, so all is good, and they've given me the go-ahead to order the packaging. I'm now gonna head over to Pack Help, upload the die-line template with my design on, and place the order. A quick tip, if you have a go-to manufacturer when a client asks, it makes you look more professional, especially if it's one of a high standard like Pack Help. If you're interested, click the link in my description and you'll receive 10% off your first order. Okay, so it's been around 4 weeks and I have something very cool to show you. I'd like you to meet Scoff's packaging. So you've just seen my process for creating packaging, but have you seen it when it comes to designing a menu? If not, you need to watch this video right here where I share my entire process for creating a brand identity for a Mexican restaurant. I'll see you over there.